Hello, assalamu alaikum guys. Today we are going to start the next topic from your final term syllabus. So here we are going to be discussed today about the dampness in the building. So if we start from the introduction of the dampness, then this dampness can be represented or can be elaborated with this word that is called moisture. The moisture present in the ground or the rainwater may penetrate into the building. So what are the two different sources of the moisture in the building getting inside? It is the ground underneath the soil and the rainwater. These are the external sources. Okay, there may be the internal sources that we will discuss in detail in later slides, but apparently, or in you can say dominantly, we may categorize or we may say that the moisture that can get inside the building may have two sources, major sources. Those may be from the soil underneath the foundation or the rainwater that may penetrate into the building. From what are the different points from where the moisture can get inside the building? It may be from below, from sides, and also from the top of the roof. What it causes? It causing the structure to remain in damp condition and thus deteriorating the structure as a whole. Okay, so in this way, this damage is very important to the structure. So we are going to be talk about the existing structure. Okay, so some prevention measures we can adopt before the construction, mean during the construction, and some we can adopt after the construction. Okay, so once the dampness or the moisture get inside the building and it starts damaging the different structural components of the building, then it will be very alarming situation. Your structure will be at risk. So we all the time we avoid the dampness, the moisture to get inside the building. Therefore, it is very essential to prevent the structure from the moisture penetration at the time of designing and construction of the structure. So very you can say the first step we can adopt, we can go for it, that is at the time of designing and construction of the structure. And then later on, once it will be constructed, then what are the prevention measures we can adopt? That is another story to be discussed, and we will discuss in this particular chapter, that is dampness in the building. So now, particularly about the dampness is the excess or the penetration of the moisture contents inside a building through its walls, floors or roof. That is known as dampness. Generally, we see and we observe that what are the different points or the locations from where the moisture can get inside the building. These are the walls of the building, the floors of the building and roof of the building. Dampness is not only injurious to the building, but it also affects badly the health of their inhabitants. Okay, so it is going to be create or produce within the building unhygienic conditions, and the hygiene is going to be affected. So that is not of course required. So we are going to be always going to be avoid the dampness in the building. It is necessary to know the cause of the dampness and method of its prevention so that the building can be constructed damp proof. Here I am sharing with you guys the different type of the dampness within the building. Here you can see this part in the building. Okay, so that is a part of the roof you can see, and a certain part of the wall that is going to be damaged. Its plaster is first of all going to be damaged, and then inside the bricks and the plaster that is going to be make the inside the bricks over the bond or the joint of the bricks, those are also going to be damaged. And here in the roof, so whatever the concrete is there, you can see the cracks. Okay, so this is also going to be damaged, the concrete inside, and finally the concrete be going to be failed with by showing the cracks on the surface of the slab of the roof. So in this way, this is going to be cause the damage to that particular structure. Here you can see. Okay, so what may be the causes? You can see it and you can just predict the causes. The causes may be the any washroom above that particular above that story, above on that particular roof slab, Okay, you may have a washroom over here, and that washroom is going to be cause the leakage of the water. Maybe in the pipes of the sewerage pipelines, there may be a sewerage, there may be a leakage, and that leakage is going to be penetrate within the walls underneath and within the roof slab underneath. So in this way it may cause the dampness. That may be one reason. So wherever the taps be there, okay, and the points for the hot water and cold waters be there, these are the points from where you can connect the water supply pipelines, and water can come inside the taps. So that may cause the leakage of the water inside the wall. So here you can see this all plaster has been damaged, okay, due to dampness. This is again another thing. So here you can see some fluffy kind of the material. Many of the times you have observed, okay, on the walls, on the bricks maybe. So this is also going to be cause the plaster damage. Here you can see there is no plaster at all, okay. So it is going to be fall off due to the dampness. And further you can see some kind of the fluffy whitish material. That material is going to be caused due to the efflorescence within the brick of this wall, and this efflorescence is the phenomena that may cause this kind. And the reason of the efflorescence, or the causes of the efflorescence, is always the water, okay. So due to the water penetration within the bricks, okay, so the water inside of this is going to be cause damage, and the salts present within the water are going to be mixed with that particular water, and they are going to be shown outside in the form of this fluffy material. So in this way you can see the fluorescence happened within the brick wall, and it is of course going to be cause the damage within the walls. Here also fluorescence plus plaster damage. This is all due to the dampness. So it is also going to give you the mortar, that particular plaster is coming outside, okay. So only the paint can be damaged, then inside plaster can be damaged, and then the brickwork can be damaged. This is a fluorescence again I was talking about. Here you can see again the fluorescence due to dampness in the building within the wall, okay. So this all is going to be caused efflorescence. Now we come towards certain technical aspects. That first of all you must know that which kind of the damages can be caused by the dampness. So here we have enlisted all those type of the damages. So you may have within the wooden members, the dry rot can be happened, corrosion of the metals, peeling off and removal of the plaster, paints to get blistered and bleached, mean their color is getting off. Electric installations get deteriorated, efflorescence which affects the exposed surface of the brickwork to disintegrate, and of course unhygienic conditions. Now after the damages we can enlist again the causes of the dampness, okay. So that's very important. Whenever you are going to be observed the dampness within the building, you must be your mind or your thinking should be go towards the causes. That's very important, because at very first you are going to be stop that cause to be happened within the building, so that the penetration of the water, the moisture within that particular structural components can be stopped, okay. That is the purpose of knowing about the causes of the dampness. So here you can see rain penetration, okay. That is very, you can say, major source or cause of the dampness within the building. Second may be the level of the site, okay. So your level of the site may be a much more lower. So whenever outside the water is going to be stayed at one particular level during heavy rainfalls, then that can be get inside the building, or that can be penetrated within the soil, and the level of your own site or your building is very much lower. So from surroundings of that particular site of the building, the water can be flown through that particular site, inside that particular site, towards that particular site, and then it can be get inside the soil, and from the soil it can, due to capillary action, it can having an interaction with the components of the structure from the bottom side, from the lower side. So it may cause the problem of the dampness for that particular building. Then drainability of the soil. So if your soil is not able to drain all of the water penetrated inside of it, then of course it will be staying inside that particular soil, and from that particular soil, due to capillary action, it can come up and rise up, and that rising of the water through the smaller pores of the soil due to capillary action, this can be get interacted with the structural component. First of all, foundations, the bottom of the foundation, then wall of the foundation, and then of course the floors underneath, and then they can get penetrate inside the building. Okay, so they may cause the damage. So the soil, that is the foundation soil under the foundation, under the building, that may have the ability, that may have the property to drain all of the water that is due to the rain or due to any other reason is just penetrated inside the soil. So that particular soil should have a capability to drain all of the water. And how you can control this factor? After the construction, you cannot control it, because already you have laid all of the load of the structure on the soil. That is the designing stage. So at the time of the design of your structure, you can select the soil or the foundation soil, or you can do some treatment, some technical, you can say, treatment you can do, treatment methods you can use for that particular soil, so that it can drain the water coming in the soil, within the soil very well. Okay, it is not going to be cause any damage to the structure built on it in the later stage. Then comes climatic conditions. Of course, if the humid climate is there, so the more moisture have a risk for the more moisture to get inside, and if the rainy you can say climate is there, then of course it is problematic. Then is defective orientation. Sometimes the direction of the rainfall is like this, that you can avoid by changing the direction of your own structure, your building. You can change the direction in such a way that directly your rainfall is not having an interaction, it's not coming inside the building. Okay, so in this way you can change the direction, or at very designing phase, you can select the orientation of the building like that is against the or opposite to the direction of the rainfall. Then moisture entrapped during the construction. So this is the part that can be controlled only during the construction. So during the construction mean that if you are using, where the water is used during construction. Water is used during construction for the mixing of the concrete. So if the water cement ratio more than the designed you have used, then later on, whatever the amount of the water is required to get the strength for the cement or for the concrete, for the plaster, for the mortar, that is going to be used. And extra water can come out, can get penetrated within the structure, and that may be entrapped within that particular component, and later on it can come out. Okay, and may cause damage. Secondly, you are going to be use the water for the curing of your structure. Okay, so curing of the plaster, curing of the concrete design. So for that particular case, if you are using the water more than the required, they can be interact. Then comes defective materials. Material itself is not going to be repelling the water, it is more absorbing the water, is defective, then it may cause the damage. Defective construction. Of course, if a whole of the construction is not on this according to the codes and specifications, then it may cause the damage, the water can easily get in, can cause damage to the structural component. Moisture which originates in the building itself. How it can happen? That your moisture can originate in the building itself. Moisture itself can be originated. This point is linked with these points. Whatever the amount of the water is entrapped during the construction may come out in the building in the later stages after the construction. That is the originating from the building itself. Okay. Similarly, if defective material you are using, then the water interact within that within the pores of the brick, within the pores of the plaster, that is not laid properly, that is not mixed properly, your concrete is giving you certain holes or pores inside of it, it is not mixed and vibrated and cured properly, then there's water interrupt can come out. Okay, so in this way, these 3 points, the result of these 3 points at the later stage after the construction, after years, maybe that your building be able to originate the moisture from itself. Now come to the preventing measures. So methods of preventing the dampness, maybe 4 we can discuss here, but these may be many depending upon our modern techniques that we are using nowadays. Okay, but generally those techniques are also be a part of any one of these 4. So very broadly we can classify the methods for preventing the dampness in 4 classes or 4 categories, that by providing a damp proof course, by the surface treatment, by integral waterproof construction, by special devices. One by one we will discuss all of these 4 methods. So the first method is by providing a damp proof course. This is very or you can say the mostly used method in the building during the construction. What is a damp proof course? So if we are going to, you will see anywhere in literature, in drawings, this D, P and C. So this is damp proof course. Okay, so DPC, generally we are going to be say this damp proof course as DPC. A continuous layer of an impervious material. This is very important. Without that particular word or this definition, you cannot say this is a damp proof course. Okay, a continuous layer of an impervious material. That's why we are providing a damp proof course, and we are saying it as a damp proof course because it must be impervious, means it is not allowing water to pass through it, that layer. So in between those 2 structural components, those are causing the water to pass through it, we are restricting that particular flow of the water or that particular penetration of the water through that particular location. So that location can be made damp proof by providing a continuous layer of impervious material which is provided in between the source of the dampness and part of the structure. Okay, so that is called damp proof course. Damp proof course or DPC is laid either horizontally or vertically. One by one we will see how. First of all, specifications of both vertical and horizontal. So in this first case we will discuss about the horizontal DPC, and then next one we will discuss about the vertical DPC. So horizontal DPC is laid 15 to 20 centimeter above the ground level on the external walls and at the plinth level in case of the internal walls. And the vertical DPC is provided to connect the horizontal DPC in the external walls with the floor level, because this floor level is very you can say the important point from where the water can get inside. Okay, because if we are going to be casting a floor, this casting or that making is very different. There is no particular bond between the walls and the floor. Here we have the walls and the floor is going to be starting just by contacting with it. There is no particular bond here. So from the soil, this is the first of all ground floor we can say. So here you can have the soil all over there. Okay, so the water from the soil cannot come through the floor itself, because floor material that you are providing, it's always maybe impervious nature can show, but here this joint is very important. So you have to be keep in your mind, wherever the joints be there in a building, from there the penetration of the water, the risk of the water to be penetrated is much higher. Okay, so we need to be restrict that particular points where only the joints be there, not particular bond is there. That floor is not embedded inside of the wall, that is just resting outside, that is just making a contact. So here you may have a joint. Okay, so from this particular joint the water can penetrate very easily, so that is needed to be restricted. So here we are providing the vertical DPC or the vertical layer. All over we are providing the horizontal, but here we are providing the external vertical DPC. So vertical DPC is also provided to prevent the dampness into the wall of the basement, okay, from the adjacent soil. Similar behavior for the basement, because basement is going to be containing all of the soil along the walls, okay, below the levels. So if this is the wall, so all over here you have soil, all over here you have soil. So it is all, your structure is inside, constructed inside the soil. So it may be at a higher risk to be water from the soil to get inside, to penetrate inside. So for the vertical DPC, we are providing all over throughout the walls, floors for the basement component. Now this is the picture where you can show that how the horizontal DPC. This is the type of the DPC, horizontal DPC, in which the material is the concrete we are using, with of course certain plastic sheet or certain other materials we will see later on, okay, that which kind of the material are used to make that particular layer as an impervious. So at the back, if you will see, this is the DPC, the thickness of the DPC, okay, 2 to 3 millimeter hardly. So here also this is the DPC, here also this is continuing, and here also. So this is the thickness that is going to be provided in whole in for all of the materials you are using to make it impervious layer. Okay, this is the plinth level. This all of the wall is going to show you this level is outside. Okay, gate level, from the gate level, porch level हम इसको usually कहते हैं. So this is going to be generally called as porch level. So from the gate you are getting inside, okay, and inside the porch you are having this kind of level. But once you are inside the house, inside the building, so you are going to be make an access by using 1 to 3 steps, okay. Then you are coming inside the house. So that particular level, when you are at the level of the covered area of the house, that is called plinth. Okay, so from the porch level, always we are making it higher, 1 or 1.5 feet, 2 feet more than the porch level that is going to be made or constructed. So here you are going to be see the DPC level or the damp proof course level. So here the mason is, or the labor is involved to laying that particular layer with the help of this kind of a mold. Okay, so mold is placed over here, and inside of this mold the material has been placed to make it a damp proof layer or the material or the course. So in this way, in this figure, you can see that all of the inside of the building has been covered, placed with the walls with the help of DPC. Okay, so you can see over here. Here you can see the reinforcement for the columns. यहाँ पे columns होंगे, ठीक है, जो आपकी building में ऊपर की तरफ जा रहे हैं from the bottom. And here you can see all DPC has been placed along the length of all the walls of the building, either inside internal walls or the external walls. Okay, along all of at the plinth level, along the length of each and every wall, the damp proof course has been placed. This figure is going to be more give you clarification about the horizontal DPC. This is the plinth level, and this thickness is going to show you the DPC layer. Okay, so here you can see a little bit up inside wall. So if the floor level inside is much more a certain bit higher, so you need to be placed this vertical DPC just to avoid the water to penetrate from the soil through this particular joint inside the building. Okay, so this is going to be restricted by providing this vertical DPC, and this is your horizontal DPC. Okay, so horizontal DPC combination and it's all material that you are using, we will discuss later on. So here from this slide comes that point, methods of laying DPC. Horizontal DPC is generally laid by spreading a layer of cement concrete 1:2:4 of specified thickness, generally 4 cm. On the top of the concrete layer, 2 coats of the hot bitumen is applied. So whatever the concrete you are providing, that is 1:2:4. Above that concrete layer, you have to provide the 2 coats, at least 2 coats of the hot bitumen. Okay, so its thickness may be 1 to 1.5 for the bitumen, and rest is covered with the help of concrete. Horizontal DPC can also be laid by spreading the bitumen felt over the top of the concrete layer. That's I have told you. Felt. That is bitumen felt. That is the material is different. Okay. Just the hot bitumen or bitumen felt. There is a difference between these two materials. Sheets of the lead, and another way is this is the first method to provide the horizontal DPC with the concrete layer with hot bitumen. Okay. So the second method, you are providing the concrete layer but with bitumen felt. Third method is that you are providing the sheets of the lead, copper or aluminium. You are not providing the concrete as a material, impervious material. You are providing just sheets of the lead, copper and aluminium, also laid on the top of the wall at specified level for this purpose. For the top of the wall, you are stopping, there is a joint for top of the wall with the bond with the wall, with the floor slab, roof slab. Okay, they are also like the floor. Similarly, with the roof slab, the walls are not going to be making a proper bond. Those are not embedded inside of it. So you can say there is a joint over there. So to restrict the water to coming from that particular side, from that particular joint, you are providing that particular sheets for the of metals on top of the walls. Then comes vertical DPC. Vertical DPC is laid by applying 2 cm thick cement plaster. Its thickness is 2 cm. Okay, that is not of concrete, because concrete will not rest along the length at the height. Due to gravity, it may come down. So you are providing the plaster 1:3 on the surface. Sometimes either 2 coats of the hot bitumen are provided on the plaster surface, or the other damp proofing material can be added, okay, in the cement during its preparation. So inside the cement we can also use. This is the maybe second, third or fourth method we will see ahead. Okay, that inside the cement or the concrete you can use the water repellent or impervious materials, chemicals you can use. So this is the sheet you can see of the metal that you are providing within the wall. These are 2 walls, and within that you are providing it. So this is going to be stop water coming inside from here to here. Now next method is by surface treatment. That is very common method. This method comprises of painting the export surface with the water repellent paints. The material selected for this purpose must be durable and effective to prevent the absorption of the moisture by the wall. Of course, you are well familiar with the kind of the repellent paints, with the kind, there are so many paints companies, those are providing these kind of the repellent paints, those are waterproof. At the external side of the walls you can provide for your building, for your houses, and you can make it damp proof. Then comes by integral waterproof construction. Okay, that method is also applicable in majority of or many of the cases. You are going to be use that particular method in which the construction you are doing in such a way that it can avoid the water penetration within the building. This method consists of adding the certain compounds in the mortar or the concrete to make it more dense by filling the pores through the chemical actions or the physical effects. Iron fillings react chemically and fill the pores. If 5% sunlight soap is added into the water to be used for preparing the mortar, the pores get clogged. Okay, here I have only mentioned 2 methods. But there are so many other methods. If you are going to be search on net, then how to make your cement, your concrete, your mortar, the water repellent, mean that is not going to be absorb the water. It will not adhere the water molecules with it. It is going to be fill the pores within the concrete, within the cement, so that the water cannot pass through it. Okay, so all of these techniques are going to be used by many of the other ways. So here due to the restriction of our course and our syllabus, I have also only mentioned you 2. Okay, so other, if you are interested, you can go and you can search the other materials and other techniques. Those can fill the pores within the concrete and the cement and mortar, so that the water cannot pass through it. Okay, so physically and with chemically they are going to be make a certain chemicals, those are going to be embedded within the pores of this concrete and the cement and mortar, so that it can be make impervious. Then comes by special devices. By constructing the external walls of larger thickness. If the external walls are constructed with the larger thicknesses, then of course there will be lesser chances of water to get inside. By using the bricks of good quality for construction of the external wall, before the construction you can do these you can say preventing measures. Before the construction, you can design it that your external walls be much more larger in thicknesses, or you can use the bricks of the good quality for the external walls. By building the walls in rich cement sand mortar, by providing the strong course and the cornice, by fixing down the water pipes in sufficient number so that water may not leak through the junction of the wall and the roof. Leakage can be avoided. Qualities of a good dam proof material. So the good dam proof material that we are using by adopting any one of the method, that should be impervious, that should be durable, that should not disintegrate, stable under the loading, level finishes are provided very good, full coverage of the wall thickness, availability, economical. So you can well understand all of these qualities. So you have to be maintain these qualities by after selecting the dam proof material that you are using for your dam proofing for your building. So depending upon the material, if we talk about the dam proofing material, so we can majorly use the flexible materials. Okay, we can use the materials and we can classify those materials. Okay, so as flexible and rigid. So first we talk about the flexible materials and then we will talk about the rigid material. The flexible materials which do not crack and deform under the loading, those are the flexible materials. They have a certain flexibility that if load come on that particular part of that particular dam proofing material, that is not going to be crack or deform. In which the bitumen is considered the most, you can say, flexible material, and mostly that's why we are using a layer of the bitumen. So bitumen mastic, that is the mastic is asphalt. Hot bitumen or the asphalt, in which you are using with addition of the sand, that is applied in hot state in 1 inch to 2 inch, mean 2 centimeter to 5 centimeter. Then comes bitumen felt, as I have told you, this is 6 millimeter thick bitumen sheet. Then hot bitumen simple spray at the rate of 1.75 kg per meter square. I have told you that there is a difference between bitumen felt and hot bitumen. So for the hot bitumen you are just doing the spray, okay, but for the bitumen felt proper thickness you are using for the bitumen layer. Then you may have the metal sheets. Your metal sheets will also be the flexible because this is a ductile material, so it may give you a flexible material for dam proofing. So then comes metal sheets. In metal sheets we can provide the lead, copper, aluminium. Lead can be reacted chemically with the cement, so should be laid in lime mortar. Okay, wherever the lime mortar is used, where lead can be used, otherwise with the cement it can react. Minimum thickness of the copper sheet should be 3 millimeter. These are very, you can say, smaller details. There may be a major details that how the sheets can be used, which kind of the different sheets are there, how the shape can be maintained, how the strength can be maintained, how the ductility can be improved for these sheets to be used as dam proofing. There are so many things and details can be incorporated under the head of this heading. Okay, but here we are only our scope is the understanding of the dam proof material that may be available in the market. Okay, so that's why only the minimum details has been incorporated over here. Then comes rigid materials. The materials that cannot resist the transverse stresses, mean the rich concrete, 1 inch to 2.5 inch thick layer of PCC plain cement concrete without the reinforcement, 1:2:4, painted with a hot bitumen. That's I have told you, just a spray at 1.75 kg per meter. Mortar 1:3 laid in 3/4 inch thick as vertical DPC. Bricks are also a rigid kind of a material, that is overburnt brick, not the simple bricks. Those are overburnt bricks used in 2 layers in cement sand mortars. Stone slabs can be used as an dam proofing material. These may be provided in the form of 2 layers of the stone slab in lime cement and the sand mortar 1:1:6. So stone can be used for the dam proofing material, but it will be a rigid material, not like metals. Principles to be followed for the use of the dam proof material. Those may be enlisted as the minimum number of the construction joints can be provided. You have to provide within the building. Wherever it is at most needed, you have to provide. Otherwise, no need to provide unnecessary joints. so that the risk or the chances of the water to be penetrate within the building be lesser. Full thickness of the wall should be covered with paints, with plaster, with varnishes like this. You have to use the flexible material in case of wall junctions, okay, because the wall junctions needed, you are providing the wall junctions for expansion and contraction. So if you are providing the rigid material, then that expansion and contraction will not be allowed within the wall junction, so you have to provide the flexible material. DPC layer should be perfectly of uniform thickness. At plinth, do not apply the DPC under the doors, mean openings, okay, and wherever the veranda openings be there, you are not providing the DPC over there. Apply the lead sheets in the lime mortar, we have discussed earlier. Dry the concrete or the mortar layer before applying the bitumen coating. That's very important, otherwise the water present within the concrete will be stay inside. You have to dry the concrete or the mortar at first, and then you have to apply the bitumen coating. This is the last topic of this chapter, and it's very important. Okay, you have to prepare, all of you guys, with much care. That is the important places for the damp proofing material, or the locations within the building where you have to provide the damp proof material. First of all, this is the list of all those locations. We are providing the damp proofing materials underground floors. We are providing at plinths and walls, external and internal. We are providing it at parapet walls. We are providing at the window sills. We are providing in the basements and underground floors. So one by one we will see the figures and how we can provide it. Underground floors, okay, so a layer of the DPC below the top finishes of the underground floor is essential. That word essential to be focused, okay. Essentially you have to provide the layer of the DPC below the top finishes of the underground floor when the subsoil water table is higher, okay. So if the table level is lower, then you may avoid that essentialness. According to your requirement, you can provide it or not, okay, depends. But if the water table is higher, then essentially you have to provide this layer of the DPC throughout the floor underneath. In dry places, well rammed layer of sand about 10 centimeter thick is laid below the floor to avoid the dampness due to capillary rise through the floor, okay. Dry places mean where the water tables are lower, the levels are lower down, and there is much more lesser or the minimum risk or the chances that from the groundwater table water can get rise up through the capillary action within the soil of the foundation, and then it may get interacted with the floors, okay, underneath. So we can only go for one remedy. That remedy is that we can provide the well rammed layer of the sand, well compacted layer of the sand about 10 centimeter thick. That is going to be give you well enough strategy against the damp proofing. The concrete floor can be treated with the waterproof mastic asphalt or the bitumen felt. If the concrete floor be there, then below the concrete floor you can provide only the mastic asphalt or the bitumen felt, mean 1 to 3 or 2 to 3 millimeter, 6 millimeter, only the bitumen thickness layer. Another way for the underground floor to provide the damp proofing is a primary coat of the hot bitumen can be given on the dry bedding of the cement concrete 1:8:16 laid 10 millimeter or 10 centimeter thick. In case excessive uplift pressure of the subsoil water, that is very critical, you can say situation where uplift pressure of the subsoil water is much more larger, higher, then the reinforcement should be provided in the concrete, and mastic asphalt or the bitumen felt is laid and covered with the concrete bearing coat. Means all of the preventing measures you can add at one place. You are providing the reinforcement, you are providing the concrete layer, you are providing the bitumen felt, okay, and also the wearing coat, mean concrete you are providing. So all of these three things you can just add up to provide resistance against the uplift pressure of the subsoil water against the water penetration. So this is the slide in which you can see the figure where the damp proofing with the underground floors has been provided. So here you can see the foundations, okay, and from the foundations these are the walls. So forget about that inside of the wall, there may be a joint. Those may be the requirement of the construction provided inside of it. So we are only interested in that particular course, This is horizontal DPC, damp proof course, that is provided at the plinth level. Then coming down, okay, so this is all of the material that you are providing for the floor. This is floor finishes, and underneath the material that you are providing for the floors. Okay, so till here. So this material, you can see one by one we can see. This is, first of all, the very first layer is of wood floor or tiles. Then you may have cement sand layer, mortar type. Okay, and below that you can see the concrete, properly concrete floor has been provided. And then this blue layer is the damp proof membrane. Any material you can provide, okay, that we have discussed earlier. The list of those 6 to 7 material or the ways are there to provide underproofing, damp proofing under the floors. So any method you can adopt, but finally you are providing a damp proof membrane or the layer. Okay, that layer is provided over here under the concrete bed of the floor. And then you can say this is sand layer, and then you may have the ground, means soil, all over there. So above the soil, these are the layers of the floor, total floor that you are providing. Okay, so here you can see highlighted blue layer, that is the damp proof layer, damp proof membrane, damp proof course. Okay, so this is the vertical DPC that we have discussed earlier. Okay, so in this way you have to provide all over this surface through this joint of the floor to the wall, and below the floors, and at the plinth level. So this DPC you have to provide. Then comes at plinth and walls. So in the previous slides also we have discussed, but now in detail we can discuss it, that in external walls horizontal DPC should be provided at 15 centimeter to 20 centimeter above the ground level. A vertical DPC also provided on the inner face of the external wall. That what we have discussed in the just previous slide. We have seen a figure there. I have mentioned the vertical DPC. Okay, that needed to be provided on the inner face of the external wall from the horizontal DPC to the ground floor topping. Okay, for the internal walls, horizontal DPC is provided just at the plinth level. No need of the vertical DPC to connect it with the floor finishes and other things. This is another example that is given in your reference book. That this is chapter number 6, dampness in the building. So you can refer to your textbook also. From the textbook, this figure has been taken, where the DPC in the external wall and the DPC in the internal wall has been shown with the help of figures. These figures and sketches are very important. The labeling of these figures are also very important. So you all must know about the sketching of those, because if it will be asked to you guys that how the horizontal DPC can be provided with the help of sketch, please show with the help of sketch that how the horizontal DPC can be provided in internal walls. So you have to show this sketch. Okay, so by showing the continuity for the floors on both of the sides, and for the external walls you have to show the soil on one side in ground level, then there will be a plinth level in 20 centimeter, not the plinth, just the 20 centimeter above, because plinth level will be this one. Okay, this plinth level is for the internal, okay, not for the external. For the external, from the ground level you have to go up to 20 centimeter, then you have to place the horizontal DPC, internal DPC at the internal face, and then you are providing, if required, then you have to provide the horizontal DPC. Okay, so otherwise the sand filling will be enough as an damp proofing material. Okay, so in this way you are providing it, the horizontal, vertical, at plinth and at the walls. Then comes at parapet. A DPC just above the junction of the roof with parapet walls gives an effective protection. A DPC should be extended to the full thickness of the wall, including the plaster. The DPC underneath the coping may be provided when the bricks are not of good quality. Here this is again from your chapter number 6 of your reference book, textbook, in which the coping is shown at first. This is the parapet wall above the roof slab. So for the parapet wall, the roof slab is embedded inside the wall. You can see this is concrete slab, RCC slab. Above the RCC slab, you are providing the asphalt coating as in DPC. It is continuing as a vertical DPC along the length of along the height of the wall is certain, and then it is going inside of it, and then to connect it, to provide a smaller shade or smaller, you can say, intruding outside, you are providing it as a metal flash. Okay, so that the water is coming on that particular metal flash, and that is trickling down outside. So it is not having an interaction or contact to the wall or the material you are providing as DPC. So in this way, your DPC material and your brick walls are going to be safe against the water to have a contact with those. So here you are providing the coping. The purpose of providing the coping is the same, that you want the less interaction or contact of the water, rainwater, to the brick walls, mean bricks of the wall. So in this way, again, you are providing a small groove inside of it, so that the rainwater, first of all, it goes down, okay, with the slope, and it's not coming directly on the wall from the top. And then if some water get some approach to come inside, then from this groove it can, or it may go down. Okay, so it is not going to be having an interaction with the sides of the wall and with the top of the wall. So fourth location is at windowsill. The windowsill should be sloped away from the wall and throtted underneath. I mean, again, you are providing a groove inside to prevent the water from trickling down the surface of the wall. So the same like coping, you are providing first of all a slope at the sill and like a shade, okay, above that. At the lintel you can also provide a shade. This is window frame. If this is outside, so you can provide a shade over here also at the top of the window, and at the sill level you can also provide this slopey kind of the material and a shade, smaller shade, and then you can throttle it to avoid the water to get contact with the wall. Then DPC in the basement. So basement is a very critical location where all kind of the DPCs, mean the vertical, the horizontal, and you have to properly design it for the materials you are providing for the vertical and horizontal DPC. So vertical DPC is applied to the enclosing the walls of the basement, and horizontal DPC is applied to the flooring of the basement. So mastic asphalt, bitumen felt may be used on the concrete surface of the basement. Otherwise, if the more chances of the water to get penetrate from the bottom side to the basement floors and the walls be there, then what you can do, you can provide the reinforcement also, and any other technique that is going to be give you the minimum chances of water to get penetrated inside. So this is the picture where you can see that the walls are properly designed. The walls are also reinforced walls are also going to be giving you the horizontal DPC inside. So this is the horizontal DPC, not only at the surfaces but also inside of the wall you are providing it. Okay, so here you can see some space you are leaving between the walls. So that space is just to be provide you the DPC. So vertical DPC you are providing within the wall of the basement. You can see over here, and also this DPC at the floors you are providing inside the concrete. Okay, so in this you can also provide the DPC at the concrete base here, okay, and here also. These are the different ways. This is the one way to provide the DPC. This is the second way, that you are providing it at from the ground level a little bit higher. This is vertical DPC. This is all vertical DPC on the outer surface of the wall. Okay, so in this way it may be prevented from the water to get inside. So you can provide it inside the wall, or you can provide it at the basement, anywhere, also at the surface, bottom surface. Here you can also provide the DPC. So all these surfaces should be secured and well designed against the water penetration. This is another way that you are providing in this way the coats of the asphalt. This is also a DPC. This is again one of the way I have told you. Okay, so for the basement floor you are providing the DPC like this. So this is also DPC in the basement. So it is concluded for the dampness topic. So let's wait for the another one. Next topic we will discuss, and first of all we are going to be discuss if any query be there during online session. Thank you so much, guys.